What's up, everyone? This is an episode of Late Night in the Library brought to you by Widener Law Commonwealth. My name's Owen, and this is Enzo.
And today we'll be talking about what we wish we knew as a 1L coming from current 2Ls.
To break into this right away, we want to start talking about kind of a first week orientation, what you should be expecting, what you should be thinking, and just kind of an overview of your mindset coming into law school, because it's certainly a daunting experience for everybody, no matter how much advice you get. It's kind of something where I like to describe it as learning how to swim by being pushed off the boat. So no matter how many videos you watch, no matter how much research you do, you really don't know until you're in it. So we hope that this sort of helps you calm those nerves and understand that everybody's in that same sort of place coming into law school. No matter who you are or where you're going, everybody kind of has those nerves. So first week coming in, walking into orientation, I think it's safe to say that everybody's extraordinarily nervous, right?
I agree. Yeah. First week orientation, I don't really have too much insight on that. Looking back, it was pretty just free flowing. Everyone's in the same space. No one really knows what they're doing. It's just, I think the best way to start is introduce yourself to some people, make yourself a little bit more comfortable throughout that week.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think going into an orientation or your first week of classes, whatever it is, everybody's there trying to just figure it out. So don't be afraid to be the person to go up and say hello. Don't seclude yourself in the corner and wait for somebody to come to you, because everybody's in the same boat, like we keep saying. So go up, shake somebody's hand, introduce yourself, get the ball rolling in that aspect. And I think that would be my best advice for orientation.
No, I would agree with that. Now going into your first week, I would say that's a little bit more different of an experience, especially if you don't really know what's going on, what to do. I think always reaching out for advice from, whether it's somebody in the library or somebody, in your common area, pretty much any upperclassmen, whether it's a 2 or 3L, they're pretty helpful from my experiences. And I think you could probably relate to that and say the same.
Yeah. I can only talk about here at Widener. Widener's done a phenomenal job from the very beginning at creating a community from the top down that really feels like a community. From the second I stepped on campus, everybody was extraordinarily welcoming and inviting, and that goes a lot to 2Ls and 3Ls at the time too. Everybody's willing to answer your questions. I mean, that's why we're doing this whole thing. And so I think it's important that if you're walking in the hallway, you see a 2L and a 3L or a 3L, don't be afraid to stop and ask questions. Like here at Widener, if you see one of us in the hallway, please. I mean, we love being in a position now where we can give advice, because it feels like just yesterday when we were sitting there and we had no idea what was going on. So now that we're in this position, we're happy to give advice. And so that brings us to the next point of the mentorship program. I'm assuming a lot of schools have it. I know here at Widener they do a fantastic job with the mentorship program. I had a phenomenal mentor, but when you're signing up, you can kind of sign up for either more of a personal social mentor, or you can sign up for more of an academic mentor. Mine, I would say, overlap. Shout out to Abby. She was fantastic. We still remain in touch to this day. And she was fantastic on the academic side. I mean, there were several times, probably too many, where I was calling her at extreme times throughout the night being like, I have zero idea how to write out a problem for torts. And she would calm me down somehow and help me with that. So if it wasn't for her, I probably still wouldn't even be here, to be honest. But anyway, so she's a good friend of mine. We had a lot of overlap on the academic side and the personal side. And how was your experience?
Yeah. And thinking back on it, I'm not really sure if I did do the personal or if I did the academic, but mine ended up being more of a personal. I actually made very good friends with my mentor, Alex. We're still really close to this day. And it became one of my best friends at law school, whether it was academic questions or, signing up for classes, registering classes, anything from friendship down to academics. he gave me advice on, but I just think that signing up for that mentorship program was very valuable. And if I could go back, I would 100% do it again. That was one of the best things best decisions I made was doing that.
100%. Yeah. I would say do that. If your school has it, I know here at Widener, obviously we have it. So get into the mentorship program and really, really utilize that, because it's fantastic. And that is one thing probably from first semester that if I said I nailed it. That's going to move us to sort of really getting into first semester, really start to understand kind of the mindset that you have or should have, and common things that we see or that we've seen with ourselves last year, a lot of people struggle with. And that is, nobody knows what they're doing all of first year, really, but first semester specifically. You're going to have, every law school has it, every 1L class has it, they will always continue to have it. You're going to have a handful of students who come in and pretend like they know what they're talking about, what they're doing. And then you're going to start comparing yourself to those people. And you're going to get in an endless cycle of, you don't belong here, you're not smart enough to be here. And it is just
not the rabbit hole you want to go down.
I mean, we saw that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's tons of kids who do that.
I would say that's pretty much every law school, every class. Like, you're going to see that. People are going to be very outspoken. You just kind of stay in your own, element. I would say not to stress about that. That's something that, no one really knows what's going on. No one can prepare super well for law school. Everyone's in the same position, no matter what you may think. That's just the reality of it. But question, first day of law school, getting ready, what dress code do you think was appropriate to wear the first day of classes? Were you thinking about something of the sort, like, I want to, dress up a little bit? Were you thinking like, hey, this is undergrad, I'm just going to bum it, wear sweats? Was that a thought that crossed your mind? Or did it not really? You just
are we going first day of orientation or first day of actual classes?
I wouldn't start with orientation, because orientation, I think it was business professional. I think we had to wear suits majority of the days.
Yeah.
But
first day of class. Like I just wore whatever I think I wanted. I don't think I might have the first day or first week dressed a little nicer than I do now. I've completely given up and just wear sweatpants and t-shirts now. Yeah,
this is probably the nicest you'll see me, and
I know you were dressed up today.
I did wear some nicer pants today, and try to look a bit more presentable for this podcast. But
that is a common question. A lot of students, I think there's some sort of misconception for some reason. A lot of people who aren't in law school yet do think that we dress up to go to class, and we don't. I mean, it's really comparable to undergrad. I think there's some people that do, but I mean, there's some people that do in undergrad too.
Yeah. There's not a strict line of like if you need to dress up or not. I think you can come, dressed in a full suit, or you can come dressed in pajamas essentially, and you could be fine. No one's judging you. It's all pretty open.
Yeah. There's never really times where we have to dress up, right? Unless it's oral arguments, which we'll get to later, or some events or things of that nature. But aside from that, day-to-day classes, you can kind of wear.
Which is funny because we don't dress up for class. I think we tend to dress up more, wear like suits and professional wear on the like weekends, just to like
definitely not with school related things. I mean, again, unless it's like a social event or something like that you're attending. I mean, then you obviously want to wear something more presentable. But in terms of classes, sweatpants, shorts, hoodies.
I like being comfortable in class. I mean, I tend to be more relaxed, laid back in class. So I like being comfortable. I'd rather be comfortable than sit there in a suit and dress up and feel professional. Especially the morning classes. I mean, when I roll out of bed in the morning, I want to feel pretty comfortable in class and just go about my day. I don't want to sit in a suit all day. So you can wear whatever you want. So no pressure on that, unless you want to dress up. You can do that. Certainly open to whatever.
There are some students who do. Yeah. So going back to the mindset and things like that you want to have your first semester. Like we said, nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows what they're talking about. So don't think that they do. Don't worry about the person whose hand is always up or who tells you how much they're studying. because everybody's got a different method. And so just because somebody's studying for more hours in the day than you doesn't mean they're studying the right thing. I mean, we've seen that time and time again. Now, your first semester of 1L is a little different. You're going to be studying for a lot longer than, than you typically need to, because you don't know what to do yet. So there's a lot of even just reading cases, which we're going to get to later on. But even just reading cases, I mean, I could read a case in a third of the time that it took me a year ago.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, I could.
Read a case.
Those first couple weeks of law school, I would say, reading cases, oh my gosh, sometimes it would take me 2-3 times to understand the case, and I still wouldn't understand it. Now I feel like a case, I can fly through a case, and it just is pretty simple now. Now then again, there are some classes that takes a little bit longer than typical, but compared to first couple weeks of law school, even orientation, I know we had a case for orientation that was I was like, whoa, what's going on here?
I don't even want to go there.
But after that, you start getting the hang of it. You start understanding everything a little bit more.
So that first semester, don't stress out. Don't let imposter syndrome get a hold of you. It's not, everybody does it. We've all done it. We all will continue to do it. But that first semester is really important to just know, even the person telling you that they know everything, they probably know the least. To be honest, I mean, the person who wants to come up and tell you how much they know, the person who keeps raising their hand, acting like they know everything, they probably know the least in the class. So do not compare yourself to that person, because it's a waste of your time, and it's just going to make you overthink. So that kind of takes us to what are important things to do, because we're telling them what not to do. So in first semester, important things to do. I mean, I say, obviously, get to know your professors, understand who your professors are, and that's really important. Right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, knowing your professors helps you prepare for class. Every professor I feel like that I've had, you have to judge it off what they ask you in class based off your homework that you do, like reading your cases. I think some professors, they're very fact-based, know your facts of the case, like when you get cold called on. Some are, reasoning. Why was the reasoning here? Some are argument. What's the plaintiff and defendant's argument? Or what's the rule? Like there's multiple rules. Like this is a very rule based class. So knowing what your professor is looking for will help you save time doing your homework, and using that time on the back end helps you in class. Like it's never a good look whenever you get called on and you don't really know what you're talking about because you didn't prepare for class. Like that's just not a situation you want to put yourself in. No one wants to be embarrassed in front of 70 kids they don't really know.
Right.
You'd rather just take care of that and do your homework, and it'll help you in the long run. Yeah.
And we'll get into a little bit more like how to approach the homework and assignments and things like that in a minute. But I think that was probably one of the hardest things for me too in 1L is, and even now, even the first couple of weeks of the semester, like of 2L, we had all different professors that we never had before. And so 1L was extraordinarily challenging because you're trying to juggle 15 different things, whereas 2L, we come in with an idea of what the expectations are. But there's still a little learning curve on understanding the professor, understanding what it is that they're looking for, because every professor really does have a whole different way of going about things. Some, last year we have professors who would spend a week on one single case. And then you'd have the next professor who spends quite literally less than 60 seconds on a case that took you an hour to read and understand. So getting the cadence and the rhythm down of every professor is something that is pretty tough at first, especially like we said, when you're juggling all these things. But even now, when we have the expectations, still an interesting little learning curve and dynamic to try and figure out.
It takes time. It definitely takes a couple of weeks. Like you said, now, 2L year, you're still learning different professors and what you need to prepare for class, how much time you need to put into, like, say they assign a problem, like you need to really focus your whole attention on a problem. You need to read, focus more of your attention on reading a case or the rules coming from the case. It's just those first couple of weeks of every semester, I feel like are going to be difficult just learning professor. But once you do, it becomes a lot easier. Yeah. And it comes really important when it comes down to test taking and midterms, and we'll get more in depth in test taking, but
every professor has a specific way they want their exam written. So understanding your professor, understanding what they look for, what they really want, how they like the exam answer structured and things of that nature is super important. So understand your professor, and that's kind of what we mean when we say that. And then that takes us to office hours are really good. And meeting with your ASFs is really good. You're getting it from the
People that have
person
been
who's
there.
grading your test and the ASF who just did very, very well in that class the year before. And so those things are important. That's one thing. If I could go back to first semester 1L, I probably would have tried to meet with professors more. I think that I didn't do it as much as I could have or should have.
Yeah, I don't know if I really met with many professors. I did take advantage of some of the ASF hours, and just if after class if you're a little confused, you don't really know what happened in class, if you miss something, it's always good to go clarify and run it by them. They're there as a resource for you. So they were very beneficial for certain classes. I know, especially in like civil procedure, I feel like that's a class, you see it on social media all the time with no matter what law school you go to. That's always a class people struggle in learning. I remember I went to civil procedure. That was my first office hour I went to. That was pretty beneficial. And when you have a question, you're confused, there's no shame in reaching out to, going to ASF hours or meeting with your professor and trying to figure out what's going wrong. Study aids aren't even the worst, are a pretty good resource to have. Like Barbary provides really good resources. I know for civil procedure that helped me, capture it as a whole.
We hit that hard.
Yeah, they have good videos. It's like there's never a shame in, looking at different study aids or doing a little bit of outside research yourself to to get that full understanding.
And Quimby too, right? Like we talked about Quimby. I mean, we both use Quimby when we need it. The big thing about these study aids is don't, like Quimby specifically, is really don't rely on it. That's the advice I got, but the advice I took too. And like, especially at first, you really cannot rely on it so heavily, because then you're going to put yourself so behind and just not know how to read a case. So I don't know if your first semester in law school, I'd necessarily recommend it unless you're going to be super disciplined about only using it when you need it. And if you don't know what Quimby is, they basically put the case briefs on there and then have a little animated video, like 3 to 4 minutes of the case. And it's really good and
it's a good tool to have.
It can explain the case and kind of frame it in a way where you understand. And then when you go in and read the case, you kind of know what to look for. It's definitely a good aid to have, but do not rely on it early on.
Yeah, I would agree. Even for prepping for finals or midterms, they provide very good practice questions. I use that a lot for, once again, civil procedure. We had multiple choice quizzes and stuff in that class, and those were helpful. Barbary too, like we said, all those study aids are helpful. Just I would not solely rely on them, especially 1L year. I mean, I get whenever you're crunching for time, especially when it goes on, you're reading more pages, and cases are sometimes a little more dense and harder to understand. So that's easier to rely on those. But on the front end, I would definitely suggest trying to understand how to read a case, and then if you are confused, obviously watch your video or get a little.
That's what they are. They're tools. They're not replacements. So don't use them like that. I mean, I think we probably know people who have used them like that, and that didn't last very long. Really, because you're not going to do well if you don't understand how a case is working and breaking down. And like I said, now I can read a case 3 times as fast as a year ago just because we've read so many, and I didn't rely on those tools like some other people.
No, I can agree with that. And also, like, it's funny because you do go on Quimby and you read these cases, and a lot of times they actually provide more information than you need for class.
Did it.
So when you're in class and like, say you did read the case and the professor calls on them, what are the facts, or like, what'd you get from this? Sometimes they over elaborate the case. You can tell like that wasn't even in the case. How did you know that information? Like I've picked up on that quite a handful of times.
It happens a lot. Yeah.
So you have to be careful. Like that's another reason why it's more of a tool. You want to read your case, and then like if you do copy the facts or whatever it is for the class, like you'll know if there's too much information in that.
That's the thing with all these tools too, I will say, because I know with like AI and stuff being super popular. So if you're going to use these tools, don't do it to cut corners. Do it to better understand. And frankly, for me, that takes longer. If I'm using AI for something to better understand a rule, my homework or my reading for that day is probably taking longer than had I not used AI.
Yeah.
But I have a deeper understanding. And so use it as a tool and use it in a smart way. Don't do it just to copy and paste things.
Yeah. I use it for school if I'm confused on something, but like Owen said, it is a tool to use to help you understand stuff. And it typically, for both of us, we both could agree on this. It takes more time when I use AI for my homework and stuff to better understand something, because when I use it, I'm trying to understand it. I don't usually use it to take a shortcut. Because when you take that shortcut, it's not going to be beneficial at the end of the day. You're not going to know what you're talking about. You're just kind of, it's just, you're not going to know what you're talking about. It's a lazy way
use
of
these
getting
things
out of
in
it.
a smart way.
Yeah.
Use them in a smart way and don't abuse them, because you're just going to hurt yourself at the end of the day. And it's just not worth it. So keep an eye out for an AI episode. I think there's going to be a full length one. And so we're really excited for that. Some great guests and some people brighter than us are going to be more qualified than us are going to be talking about AI and all the sort of legal complexities behind it. So we're really excited for that and excited to see where it goes. I'm for sure
excited for that. I think no matter what you do, it's going to be, it's the start of it.
Yeah. So keep an eye out. Keep an eye out for that episode. And I think next we kind of want to talk about your daily life and balance in school. That's a huge question that everyone's always wondering, like, is law school really 24/7, 365, head down grind all the time? Like, how do I keep things in my life that I enjoy doing right now? Is it possible? And so I think we have an answer from that now, doing this for about a year and a half. I mean, are there things in your daily life that you keep?
Yeah, I would say I'm very, I have a very structured schedule throughout the day. I love keeping a schedule, no matter what it is. Like every single day, I am very organized about what I do. So I think especially 1L year, I really liked, getting up early, getting started the day. I know we had classes early in the day, but when it came to like that nighttime when I had to get my homework done for the next day, and I'm someone that does homework the day before class starts. So for Tuesday's class, I do homework Monday night, and I think you were the same way. To take my mind off things, I implemented always working out. I made sure I went to the gym every single day, just to get my mind off things. It was very good for my mental health. When I needed a break, when I needed to step away from something throughout the week, that was always something I made sure I implemented in my day. And when I didn't, I got to the point where I didn't implement that into my schedule. I felt my day felt kind of off. Like that was really a refresher I needed in my day. To take my mind off school.
Yeah, it's important. That's a piece of advice I always give when a 1L asks some general questions, and that is keep some sort of constant in your life daily if you can. Of course, there's going to be exceptions where days or weeks are going to get so challenging that maybe you have to sacrifice. But for the most part, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, keep something in there. Whether it's you like to work out once a day, maybe you go for a walk once a day. And it can be a combination of a couple small things. I know I've heard before, like, hey, when I'm eating a meal, I'm not thinking about school. So people, when they're sitting down to eat, they're not looking at readings, they're not doing stuff like that. So that's an approach. Going to the gym, like you said, some people enjoy winding down at the end of the night. I always try to leave, sometimes it's a half hour, sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's more than an hour at the end of my nights, to just wind down, do whatever it is I want to do, not think about school.
TV shows, something like a movie,
anything
to get your mind off. Anything to get your mind off school, I think, is very good. Yeah. Whether even if it's like I know you brought up eating a meal, like cooking for yourself, just doing something for yourself throughout the day. Some days are harder than others. You like Owen said, you might not be able to implement it in your daily every single day. But
I think for the most part, you should try, though, and be clear about that. Like, I think that's important. Do not lose yourself to law school. Absolutely don't, because that's the people who work 24/7 are going to get burnt out, by October. I mean, they're going to hit a burnout, and you're going to blow right past them because you kept these positive things daily for your mental health. And so it's super important. And it's really important too in 1L. Like now we have more discretion. We know what's going on a little bit But in 1L, like we've said, you really don't know what's going on. You don't know how much leeway you have. And so we're not, work hard, and you're going to be working a lot. I mean,
Mhm.
it really is. Law school is not a joke. I mean, you're going to be working a lot, so we don't want to downplay it. But you're going to feel guilty when you go do something you want to do during that first semester and first year. Like now we do things we don't really feel guilty about it.
Yeah.
Like we know that we can go out and have our social time or hang out on the couch and watch football on Sunday or something like that, and we're okay. But first year, you're going to sit there and want to watch the Steeler game, and you're going to be sitting there feeling super guilty for that 3 or 4 hour window, thinking, man, I could have got so much done. So you really need to schedule, like, I'm going to take this time to watch the Steeler game, or on a Monday, I'm going to take this time to do X, Y, and Z, and that's okay.
Now, I know we kind of addressed, entering our first semester, and, we're now touching on some daily life things, getting your homework done, how you're managing your time. Was there any time that talk to me about your cold call experience? Because I know that falls underneath it falls under this realm. You could really talk about it, from day one, or you could talk about it, from the end of your first semester. I think it could really fall anywhere in that realm, but that's always a big question. I think that was something I often thought about, like coming into law school, like how do cold calls work? That's a huge question. Everybody, when you think about law school, people always are like cold calls. Like, so talking about your experience with that.
They are extremely, extremely scary. No, I'm just kidding. They're not. Everyone thinks that they are, and your first couple are. It's tense, especially in a bigger class or a professor who keeps coming back to you. They are what they are. But law school really does more of a Socratic method, and that is cold calls, and the students talk through, reason through things, and that's kind of how you learn more so than the professor just lecturing. Now, some professors still lecture.
You're so, like, some people are so scared to get called on, mess up, and then, like, you could talk to someone after class, like, oh, I didn't even realize you got called on, or like,
no
I
one
didn't
cares.
even know you can mess up. Like, yes, like when you don't do your homework on the front end and like didn't read a case, like that can be embarrassing. If you just simply like gave them the wrong answer, majority of the time the professors will, they will try to work with your answer, implement it in some way. They don't want to make you feel bad. Like, they're not there to embarrass you in class. Like, it's very, so that's also a very relieving part of cold calls. No, like I said, the person next to you is just as anxious to get called on as you are. So like I said, no one really pays attention. No one, makes fun of somebody if they get the wrong answer.
Yeah, that's the thing. You got to think about it. And, for those of you who are in law school and still hate cold calls, think about a couple of instances where somebody else in your class got cold called and gave a not that great of an answer. Like, you're probably sitting there right now thinking, well, I don't really remember. I can't name any. Well, yeah, it's because we're all thinking about ourselves. While you're giving your answer to a cold call, I'm thinking, oh, I hope I'm not next. But that's the funny thing too, is like, we just came out of a class and I just got cold called. How many times in that class? 7 times, 6 times he called my name today. And it's no problem. I mean, and there were times when you get called that many times in a single class. I mean, there's going to be times where you're like, whoa, what's he asking me? And you kind of have to quickly put something together. But I feel like once you kind of get your feet wet after 1L and get to 2L, it's really not a big of a deal.
I will say a hot take, though, on that is I don't like going big gaps into not getting cold called. Like, I'd rather just get, like...
This guy's been cold called in months.
I will say that one class I got ripped up the first few weeks in that class, and I haven't been called on. It's been a couple months now.
So is that the advice you give? If you don't want to be cold called?
No. I would say I actually at this point, like, I'm waiting for, like, I want to be cold called, which is like such a weird thing to say, but I rather would get like called because I want to get involved a little bit. I'm not one to raise my hand in class, but I do like getting involved a little bit when I get called on. Yeah. But now it's to the point where I'm anxious to. I've never before, maybe once or twice, have thrown up a hand in class, and now
this is a hack. This is a hack. If you don't want to be cold called, I don't understand why you've never done it. Raise your hand. Just raise your hand. Participate. Like, I'm not saying that that's 100% going to work, but I will say in the past, if there have been instances where I knew I didn't have much time for the assignment because I waited to the last minute, and then there were 2 cases at the end of the assignment that I didn't get to, I'm throwing my hand up every couple minutes in the first front end of class because, well,
Yeah.
I mean,
It's not the worst.
if you
not the worst.
participate, you're much less likely to get cold called.
I never took that advice. I was always one to take the risk. I'll see if I get called on.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, for the most part, I think that's kind of what I do. But
yeah.
if I know an answer and it's something interesting and I want to kind of be in control of what's happening, but if I'm raising my hand.
Yeah. But the bottom line about cold calls, it's not that bad. It's
no.
Yeah, like maybe the first couple classes.
Be prepared. Just be prepared for class. If you're not prepared for class, that's when you're anxious. But if you're prepared, nobody's really like gonna remember. You could give the worst answer ever. We all have. You're gonna do it at some point.
What is your worst cold call experience? I think that's a good.
You were sitting right next to me, so you know it.
I was. I do remember it, but I would like you to elaborate on it a little bit.
I think I had a couple. He kept coming back to me. The professor kept coming back to me, and I think I was doing pretty well. It was first semester of 1L, and I was doing pretty well. And this was a very heavy cold call class, and I was doing pretty well. And then he finally came to me and asked a question that I was just so confused on at this point. And so I kind of was like, I don't really understand that. Let's just say directly after class, we spent 2 hours in his office until I did understand it. And really fantastic. I mean, the class was awesome. It was a fun class. Professor was even better. But that's the thing too. Professors want you to get it. So even if you mess up on a cold call, show the initiative. Go to their office after, or their office hours, or the ASF. Because like I said, I was in the professor's office for probably 2 hours after that class that I got a little bit chewed out for not having an understanding.
You got a little chewed out in class too.
But that's what I'm saying. That's the only place I got chewed. Yeah, he chewed me out in class a little bit for not understanding because I didn't take the initiative to show up to an office hour or anything like that. But he took the time with me afterwards to sit there and make it right and go through and help me with that. And then the thing that I got cold called on was probably my strongest area in that class by the end of the year. And so
it's funny how it works.
Yeah. What was do you have a worse?
I don't have a horrible experience. There's definitely been times where my answer has been a little shaky. The one thing that would stick out to me was I was in class, and you remember this. I'm in class, and I think anybody in our class that we were close with probably would remember it, because I'm always pretty prepared for class and, have an idea what I'm talking about. And the professor asked me a question and I didn't understand what the question was. And this is good advice in this question itself is never be afraid to ask the professor to repeat their question. That's always.
Well, unless it was a long-winded question, then maybe don't.
Yeah. But you should probably be prepared to answer the question. But if you didn't hear it, there's typically no shame in asking it. So, and I'm not one to typically ask a professor to repeat a question. So I just said, hey, could you repeat that question? I didn't understand it. And professor was like, absolutely not. You should have been paying attention. And
it was a long question. I remember, now that you brought it up, I remember.
But with those long questions, I get confused. There's too many parts to it and I lose track of what it was. And I was just I felt bad. I was like, whoa, seriously, you asked 5 questions in one question. But I made sure I raised my hand after and, gave the rebuttal for that, because I felt a little discouraged after not getting the question repeated to me.
Yeah.
But that was only I would say the only bad cold call experience would have been in that, which isn't even the worst thing. No.
So if you take anything from this, understand what's going on, understand what is written on the board. Do not ask about what's written on the board, and understand if it's a long question, pay attention.
Yeah, don't want them.
And if you're not paying attention, get up and go to the bathroom. Because don't let it happen to you. But no, really, if it does, it's no big deal. Nobody remembers. I barely remembered that till you brought it up the other day. And
I can't believe I even remembered that. It just stuck in my head for a while.
I mean, yeah, even us, I struggled with figuring out what was my worst cold call. So you're even not going to remember it, and it doesn't factor into your grade. As long as you're prepared and give a good faith effort, it's not. So
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much the whole thing there. And then prepping, right? We've talked about this, but we both have different. Well, we have a similar approach, I guess, to prepping for class, but we have different approaches for things like case briefs. For those of you who are not yet in law school, it's really a lot of just reading. There's not assignments for the most part. So it's not worksheets or like even assignments on Canvas or D2L. A lot of schools use D2L. It is read these cases and then do a case brief on them and come in ready to talk about them and understand how the rules are working in the cases. And so that's pretty vague, but for the most part, it's just a ton of reading and then come in. You're not like preparing worksheets and things like that, right?
And that was something I didn't understand about. I didn't know how homework would work, and it is just strictly all reading. Like sometimes, your professor will make sure there's a couple questions in there to that you understand how the rule works or how to implement it.
Yeah.
And you'll maybe get some like short. I know this year, which is new for us, like we've gotten some like Canvas quizzes, a couple questions, but I don't think we had any of that 1L year.
Yeah, it's very rare, even now. But yeah, for the most part, like I said, those of you who aren't here, it is just a ton of reading cases, understanding cases, and not so much actual like assignments in terms of worksheets and filling things out. So it's kind of nice. But with that, there's different sort of preparations that you come into. So I've heard of people preparing in a million different ways, and that's the important thing. I mean, the number of law students that there are, that's how many ways there are to do things, really. I mean, you could do things a number of ways. Now, is there probably an average best way? Well, maybe like a gauge. Like I think we all shoot for some sort of thing, but after the first couple months, you fall into where you feel comfortable. And for all of us, that's a different thing. I think for preparing for classes and reading, we do ultimately the same things, but with like case briefing, what's your strategy?
Yeah, that is something we do different. I like to overly prepare just because I don't want to be caught off guard with a question in class. Like I do typically take a little bit more time doing my homework and overly preparing for class. So I do not so much like first year I was doing like a pretty in-depth case brief for classes. Like obviously now it's more just like notes, like hitting the main points, like what's the rule here, whatever, highlight my book, go about it. I think that's something that's helped me. Everyone's different. Whatever helps you. I know you preparing for class with note wise, we differ a lot with that. I take a lot of time typing my stuff out, making sure I really get a full understanding. And obviously you do a little bit different, so you can talk about your...
Well, I think with notes, we do more similar things, taking notes on certain things. But with case briefs, I basically just book brief now at this point. Like I said, we read cases much faster now. We have a better understanding for the most part as a general rule than we did in 1L. And so I just book brief, which is just highlighting the important things essentially, and then writing in the margins. I take a ton of notes in the margins. My cases are all marked up. So if anyone buys my books in the future, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. We'll see if I was doing the right thing or not. But yeah, book briefing for me works really well because then I'm looking in the book during class. I don't have to keep going back and forth to my notes in my book, and then anything that's important I will translate into my notes. And so I think that's kind of...
Yeah, you definitely were bigger on book briefing. I was bigger on case briefing, making like a Word document, typing out, your facts, your issue, your rule, your holding, your reasoning. Like I was also always big on that. I always made sure I threw.
And for people not here yet, too, like explain, what is a case brief?
So your case brief, it's just you have your facts, so you're gonna tell what happened in this case, but lay out the thing, which is ultimately takes the longest time to like type out if you're typing out a case brief because there's typically a lot of facts. So if your facts, it's gonna throw in like your plaintiff and defendant argument under that. And then it's going to throw in like a lower court decision, if it's appealed or whatever it is. Then you have your issue, like what's going on in this case. That's like your overarching thing that you're looking at. Sometimes you have multiple issues. Your rule is obviously the main thing that you're going to be learning about in class. That's ultimately probably the most important thing to pull from a case.
Mhm.
And you probably could agree with that.
Yeah, the rule is the most important. You want to know the reasoning why the court decided to do that, and any tests and things like that
Yeah.
that follow it are important.
And then you have your holding, which is, you know, what the court decided, if they agreed with this, if they disagreed, and then your reasoning. Why did they decide this? Which is also important. You want to know why they've ruled one way or another. So those are your like 5 little aspects of it. I know you can combine like your holding and reasoning sometimes, and typically like the issue isn't very important. You want to know what's going on in the case, but that's not.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, yeah, and it boils down to like you're going to get better. Like he said, there's a lot of facts, but you know, the fact that Susie drove a blue car doesn't really matter. Like she matters. Okay, she was driving. Does her blue car matter? Like at first you're going to be overdoing it, but in reality, nobody cares. I mean, unless the case revolves and that's a material fact and that, you know, or issue in the case. But the fact that, you know, somebody's shirt was a certain color probably doesn't matter. Why they even put that in some cases doesn't matter. Now, again, if the case is revolving around something like that, it's like robbery and you're trying to figure out who's who, that those things matter. But just, you know, and those are things that there's really no hack to do better on. It's just time. I didn't start out book briefing, and I don't recommend starting out book briefing. I think that I would do it on paper, in a doc, something like that, to keep it more organized. But once you know what you're doing, what you're looking for, if you want to try out book briefing, and a lot of people do a hybrid. Like, do you mark up your book at all?
Yeah, I do. Like now I do. Last year was strictly like highlighting, and then like case brief on a Word document. This year it's more highlighting, little book briefing, and then like the important things I'm throwing into a document just so it's at my disposal. Because I do like looking at I like typing stuff out in my own words because I understand it better. So when I type it out in a document, it makes me understand the case better, rather than just like reading. Sometimes those opinions can be wordy and you don't get the full grasp of it. So I feel that when I type it out, I understand the cases better.
Well, that's and we do the equivalent. I just do that in the margins of the thing. I'll translate it. You know, if there's a really important line that I know is going to be important, highlight it, and then if it's very wordy, I'll just kind of put a little note. So off of that, that's kind of our daily preparation. So from there, we're going to get to the most fun part of law school: midterms and final exams. I mean, obviously, the best part of law school is finals week.
Oh yeah.
So first year midterms, they're tough, they're weird, and not every class has a midterm. So I mean, they were nerve-wracking, right? But I think for the most part, they probably helped our preparation for finals.
I would agree with that. I do. Not a lot of classes do midterms. I do like midterms because it keeps you up to it, like with my outlines. Like if I
it forces
you to study and like learn the material more so in the first half of the semester rather than just like learning it all at once if you tend to cram at the end for your finals. So I think that's why midterms are somewhat beneficial. At the same time, if you don't understand it and you do, that's a little wordy. If you do not do well on your midterm, it's typically not the end of the world because they're typically not worth a lot of points.
Yeah, and like I think a lot of classes don't even do them. You know? So I mean,
it's more just a baseline. Like they just want you to make sure you're understanding what's going on, and which it helped like first semester of 1L, but they're not. You don't need to. It doesn't ruin your entire grade if you don't do well.
Yeah, don't stress over it. I mean, midterms are important. They keep you up to date. That's why I like them for all the same reasons you listed. They keep you accountable. Had we not have them, am I going to start outlining and those sorts of things? You know, probably not right away. And so it's important. But finals week is tough too. But before we get to finals, I want to talk about outlining real quick. Super important. I think a lot of people wonder about outlining. What is outlining and kind of how to approach it and when to approach it. We have extremely different approaches for this. So I think it's, again, everybody has their own approach. Follow what you like. Talk a little bit about your outline.
Yeah, and I think where we come in, like, I always see on social media, like, your type A law student, your type B. I think I'm lean more towards like a type A. You lean more towards like a type B.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know about
I don't know what I just see clips on it. But I do outline. I probably should start outlining more in the beginning. I shouldn't wait till the last minute. I try not to. It does help you I'm a person that I take a
And
lot
for
of
those
notes.
people who don't know, for the people who aren't in law school yet and are thinking about coming, explain kind of the basic.
It's ultimately a study guide. That's how I
Yeah.
think of it. Like if you're trying to explain an outline to somebody, it's your study guide.
You're just condensing your notes into
Yes.
something that's a little bit more it's easier to swallow, taking all the important things, because you might have 100 pages of notes by the end of it.
Mhm.
And so you just want to condense that into maybe 15 pages, maybe 40 pages,
Yeah.
maybe 60 pages.
And that's
for
why
the
it's helpful
process.
to me, because I tend to study off my outline, and like if I'm
Mhm.
memorizing something or understanding it, I like everything condensed and broken down, like very specific. My notes are typically all over the place because a lot of times like you're jumping around in class at different subjects and like they don't fit in here, they fit in here. So when you outline, you're really putting everything in perspective and like understanding how it flows.
Mhm.
So they've helped me to study for finals. I know you have a different approach, and you can talk about that. It's what works for you.
Yeah.
There's no perfect way to be a law student, is how I would put that.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I don't typically do an outline. I like to, and you can get outlines, right? Like a lot of people will give outlines. That's a great reason to be in the mentorship program. Your mentor will probably be happy to provide you with their own outlines. Now, again, like with anything, it's a balance. Don't completely rely on somebody else's outline. I rely very heavily on my notes and an outline, and then I handwrite things out. I love handwriting things out the week of exams. That is typically what helps me the most. Half the time I'm not even going back through the stuff I'm writing. When I write it, that really helps me in just going through everything. But I go more of kind of like put my head down for 24 hours before the exam and like walk in, which is probably not the healthiest or best approach. But I'm sure there's going to be people who are like, yeah, I've done that too. But I wouldn't try that first. I've done that, and there were definitely things, especially the first semester of 1L, that I could have done better.
Yeah, it's just all based on preference. Like, it really does depend what you want to, how you learn. Like, you have different ways of learning than I do. It's just, there's no perfect way to do it.
Like I said, as many law students as there is in the country, that's how many ways there are to approach these sorts of things. Really, there's no wrong way to do it. It's all custom tailored to you. It's not even about the time. A lot of people think it's about the time that you put in, and it certainly is up to an extent. But there are people who study hours longer than we do, and we're okay. And there are people who study way less than we do and do way better than us. So it has nothing to do with timing. It has everything to do with how you approach it. What's your method, and your strategy.
But off that, and I think we've talked about this before, at the end of the day, you really only need to worry about yourself. Like, don't worry about if someone else is studying more than you or whatever they're doing. Like, it's
have the imposter syndrome.
Yeah, don't think about that kind of stuff. And then Owen also touched on the point of getting an outline from a 2L or 3L. I found that very beneficial. Just
super beneficial.
Touching up my outline. Like, I always went through, did my entire outline. Would study or whatever. If I was curious about a certain topic or something, I would look through an outline that I got from my mentor or upperclassman that I had that I knew, and I would then try to make sense of the two and like put it together. I never relied fully on like an outline from somebody else, but I used it as another aid to
using your resources again, but don't just heavily rely on only only those things, right? Like, you got to put in the work, and you've got to know these things enough to look at another outline. Because I've done this. You look at an outline and you go, whoa, I got to put that in my outline. I don't even have that in my outline. Well, it's because we didn't read that case. That's a case that got overturned, or a case that we just simply didn't go
or a
over.
different book they're used.
So it's super important to know, like, I'm able to use another outline because I've done enough work in the class myself to know when I'm looking at something that we haven't even covered.
Yeah.
So make sure that you're not just using, and that goes for any of these supplements, any of these resources. Don't abuse them. Use them in the correct way, and you'll be fine.
I agree with that.
Certainly don't rely on them without doing your own work yourself first.
So let's just touch real quick on what are finals week like. We'll touch a few quick minutes on that. What's your experience with finals week? Is it stressful? Is it not stressful? I mean, I think everyone could probably agree it's pretty stressful. It's probably the worst time of the year for those 2 weeks out of the whole year. That's probably the worst 2 weeks.
Yeah, finals weeks. Yeah, it's I mean, it's tough. There's no doubt. I mean, it's I don't think it's comparable with anything really that I've went through in an academic sense. Um, yeah, I mean, we're just studying the whole 2 weeks is like you are just locked in every day, and frankly, those are the 2 weeks where, if you're someone who does have something cut out for you every single day, you're probably not doing that thing. Whether it be the gym, I'm sure skipping the gym days, skipping going for a walk, going for a bite with your friends, like it's just not going to happen during finals week for the most part.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I mean, if you have a big gap, maybe you'll be able to take some time. But it really is a grind. And I've had finals weeks where I pin myself up against a wall too, where I'm kind of like, I'm really studying, and that's what I do. That's how I do it.
Not a lot of sleep going on. Like you typically it's, you're studying all day long, staying up late, waking up early, doing it all over again. I think it is important to, prioritize getting a little bit of sleep. Like you shouldn't be pulling all-nighters and doing that kind of stuff. But
yeah, definitely don't be pulling all-nighters.
And like you shouldn't be killing yourself, but with studying. But you should still, it's a stressful time for sure. But at the end of the day, you feel very relieved by the time it's over.
No, I mean, definitely like we're not going to get too deep into the mud of it, but like, sleep and stuff, pulling all-nighters before an exam is not recommended. I mean, because you're going to go in there, and if you're brain dead because you haven't slept in 24 hours, you're going to be forgetting the stuff that you know. So just because you stayed up and studied an extra 6 hours or 4 hours, it's probably ultimately going to hurt you. So, I mean, just try and be as well prepared as you can leading up to finals. I know it's a tough time, especially 1L with Thanksgiving and the holidays right around. So it is an extremely weird time with having it directly after Thanksgiving, and it makes it tough.
Yeah, that was both semesters. We had Thanksgiving break, and then we went right into finals after. And second semester, we did Easter, and then we went right into finals. So typically, it falls over a holiday for the majority of the.
Yeah, so just be as prepared as you can going into finals week. You want to feel comfortable, meet with your professors, meet with the ASFs before, and then studying. I mean, we were never really big into study group. We've studied together for probably every exam so far. And that method has worked out well, I'd say. I mean, so some people like to study. I like to study alone because I like to go at my pace and figure it out. And I like to have, if I don't understand something, I want to dive into it, really understand it myself. And so I try and do that before we meet. And then we meet and we go through things. There's some things I don't understand that he has in his notes or he can better understand, and vice versa. So it's a good balance. We keep each other in check because, maybe I take longer on certain assignments, so maybe I can better articulate a rule, whereas you want to start studying earlier than me. So, we push each other where I'm maybe more relaxed and you're more high pressure, but it's nice little middle ground where you're freaking out the night before an exam and I can calm it down, and I'm not freaking out enough. So that I start to get a little.
Yeah.
So it's a good balance.
I think the main thing with that is just really finding like what works for you and like what people work for you. We were good friends and we could study together, which I think was very beneficial to both of us. But just because you're friends with somebody does not mean you need to study with them. Some people don't, click well studying. We happen to.
Yeah, we were lucky, I think, too. Yeah, for sure. Because there are a lot of people who just study in all different types of ways. But again, that's a thing that like we really can't give too much of advice on what to look for. It's just going to be one of those things where trial and error. You work through it. Your first semester isn't going to go the way that you plan it to, whether that for good or for bad. I mean, it's all you can do is prepare the best way possible, meet with your professors, meet with the ASFs, talk to friends, see what everybody else is what direction they're moving in, because there's going to be people who are moving in the wrong direction. There's going to be people moving in a great direction and everything in between. So you just kind of have to gauge it yourself, but keep working hard, keep getting through it. And believe me, it's all worth it in the end after you take that final and the last final. And you get to,
celebrate a little bit.
Yeah, go and relax for a few weeks. It's really nice. So it all ends up being worth it. So put your head down and just work hard during that time period. And then when you come back, if that's your first semester, the second semester, no matter what your grades were, it's not the end of the world. Learn, understand what you did wrong. Go meet with your professors with your exam and ask them how you could have written better. And just sort of,
trying to figure out what you did wrong, trying to incorporate, what your professors told you to work on, that's the most important thing about the second semester. Trying to figure out what worked for you the first semester, what didn't work, and like making your time a little bit more valuable. And it's all like a timing thing, I think second semester. And just really figuring out what works for you.
But you're going to fall into a groove too. Like, that's the thing. People always ask which year in law school is the hardest. And it's so hard because you're comparing different things. First year is so hard because, like we said, first semester, you really don't know what's going on. So it takes a long time to fall into place and to figure out what truly is going on. Because you hit a place probably 4 to 6 weeks where you're like, oh, I'm here. I'm good. I know what's happening. And then a couple weeks later, you're like, whoa, what's going on again? Like, it's tough to get your feet under you that first year. But then second year, I'd say, the content that we're learning is more challenging. But we're so much more comfortable now and know what we're doing. So in that sense, I would say my 2L experience has been easier so far.
Yeah, I would say
that's with the content being more complex and more challenging, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say I have more time. My 2L year now, like we have more time through the week, like, or something. The weeks are still busy. Like, you still have a lot of
it's just we understand what's going on.
You understand what more is going on. Like the professors expect of you. I do think finals will be more challenging for 2L year, but so far, like, doing homework, preparing for class stuff, you know what the professors expect of you and what you need to do, and I think that makes it a little easier. But I think the material is a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, but more of the story for finals, for 1Ls, don't freak out. It's okay. If you're second semester 1L and you just got your midterms back and you're really upset about them, it's all right. Meet with your professors, meet with the ASF. We've all been there. We know people who have been there, or we've been there ourselves. Like, we've all gotten back a grade where we're like, whoa, what happened? I felt great about that. I felt better about my first semester grades than my second semester grades, in terms of walking out of the final. And I did much better my second semester than I did my first semester. So it's so weird. No matter what you do or how you feel after a final, it's hard to tell because the grading on the curve that we didn't touch on very much, but it is a competition against the other students. So it's really hard to gauge how exactly you did.
Yeah.
But everything's okay.
The moral of the story is just don't stress out. Relax. Everything's going to be fine at the end of the day. Do what works for you. Finals it's not the most fun time. And
even if you did well, though, after that first final, don't think that you're good, because there are people who did extremely well and then completely dropped off because they felt pretty good about it. I mean, that's great, but don't get too high on yourself. So you still need to work on still meet with the professors too, because first semester 1L does not give a good gauge of where you're going to be as a whole in the class, like as a class whole, because now people start to understand what's going on. So whether you did really, really well, really, really low, I'd say you're closer than you think. Still meet with the professors, still meet with the ASF, and don't get too high or too low on yourself because the game's not over. So that's kind of the final stuff. The last kind of thing we want to talk about is what happens second semester 1L. It makes a lot more work. I think second semester was much harder than first semester in terms of workload. And so we have a lot of legal writing assignments. So I guess just general preparation for a legal writing assignment, it definitely changed my dynamic in my whole week of how I was approaching things. And that's also because I probably didn't start as early as I could have. So first and foremost, start when the professor tells you to start. Start many, many weeks before it's due. Believe me, you're gonna need it.
And you'll be thankful at the end if you do start earlier.
100%. Yeah.
The legal writing, I think it's time. It takes a lot of time. You have to put the time into it to get a better grade. You have to, make sure you pay attention to class. You have to do all the things the professor is telling you to do if you want that to reflect your grade. I've heard from many people, and I think you could say it too. Like, you don't want to wait till the last minute to start on those writing assignments.
Well, if you wait till the last day, it only takes you a day.
That's not a good advice to
Do
take.
not take that advice. No, that's, don't pin yourself in a corner because it's a tough place to dig out of. So that's the biggest piece of advice that I have for any of the legal writing assignments. They're going to take you a lot longer. And it's not like writing an undergrad. It's a lot different. And we can do an episode because we could talk for 40 minutes alone on just legal writing. And so maybe if there's interest in it, we could have a legal writing professor come on and kind of give some do's and don'ts and something like that. If people are interested in an episode like that, again, let us know. We're happy to kind of do it because we're here doing it for you ultimately. So whatever you guys want to see, we're happy to do that. And then the last kind of thing we want to talk about, because that's how you end your 1L year, is oral arguments, which
I forgot about that. Yeah,
I thought were extremely fun and exciting. That was my favorite part of that entire class, but they are daunting too. I mean, there were some nerves going into it. So was there anything that you felt just generally with oral arguments preparation, or you get assigned a partner and
so we were assigned partners with ours, and you just go in front of like a 3-judge panel. It's typically your professor, maybe another student or two, or a couple professors. It's not really, it's not anything super crazy. There's nerve because you're talking in front of people. It's more real world stuff. But I remember going into it when they first told us about it, I was a little like, everyone feels like, oh my God, you have to go talk.
Oh, everyone definitely has nerves.
And everyone's nervous for that, final, oh my gosh, you have to finish your 1L year with oral arguments. And it's not, I did not think it went bad at all. I was pretty comfortable during mine.
You were very confident. Very confident the night before. You were telling me a lot of things about when you come in first place, I've got to call you Mister and stuff like that. And
I genuinely think I did pretty well at my, oral argument. I thought I did well.
Sure.
I had a very challenging legal methods class. I did not get first place.
And that's all right. You did well.
But I will say Owen was just as confident in his abilities to do well at oral argument. He was in a different section as me. If he wasn't, I probably would have got first place in his section. But
I highly doubt that.
He did.
I'm happy to put it on the record. If anybody wants to see, we'll go up against each other one-on-one oral arguments. And we'll schedule that.
But he did take the cake in his. The bottom line is they're not anything to really stress about.
They're not so bad. Make it fun. Don't try to memorize your whole argument. Keep it loose. Know what you're talking about.
It's conversation. That's what they say, right?
Yeah, and be competitive and try to beat the other side and make a compelling argument. It's really a lot of fun if you make it fun. So don't make it more than it is. And from what I remember, it wasn't a massive percentage of our grade or anything. So we had some leeway with it.
That was one thing. I mean, I'm very competitive, so I wish I would have put up against Owen because I think I would have.
It would have been pretty. Yeah, that would have been easy. I wish we would have done that. That would have been fun That would have been fun, but not very much competition. That would have been. So, I mean, I think that's about it. Any of the topics that we talked about, we kind of really just wanted to give a bird's eye view and kind of a zoomed out version of what exactly to expect. Some little things. We went deeper on some things than others, but if there are particular things that anybody's curious about, has questions about, ask us in the comments section. If you go here to Widener, again, come up to Enzo and I anytime, ask us any sorts of questions. And I think that goes for most of our class. I don't want to speak for everybody, but for the most part, 2Ls and 3Ls are all extremely happy to be in a position to give advice, to talk to other students. Widener has a phenomenal community of students who do that and staff. So it trickles all the way up, from Dean Cummings down to the 1Ls.
I would agree.
We have a great community and are happy to share advice or, like I said, direct you to somebody who knows.
Okay, so then to wrap up our episode for the Widener Law Commonwealth podcast, late night in the library, we have one commonly asked question I guess we could ask each other just to wrap this episode up. So since I was asking the questions the majority of the podcast, I'll take the lead here and finish off with this one. Favorite class / subject from 1L year?
You go first.
I would say property. It's a very, and people, that's a wild, answer. I think that's a wild, people don't really go along with that because, it's a lot of information, but I enjoyed
it's heavy. Yeah.
I enjoyed that class.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was good. I think criminal law was a good one. Which, funny enough, those were the only classes that we didn't have the full year. Maybe that's why it was our favorite, because we got rid of them quick enough.
Yeah.
But no, criminal law was the most interesting. It was just fascinating cases and really things that happen more often than you think happen. So it's just interesting to see in the minds of some of those people.
Probably two hot takes because those are two typically
Pretty
challenging.
heavy, challenging. But
Challenging
definitely in
courses.
terms of interest. I mean, interest level, that was a good one. So, but yeah, I think that wraps it up. So thank you for listening. If you made it this far, if you have any topics that you want to hear about more in the future, please, like I said, leave a comment. If you see us in the hallway, ask us a question. But I think this wraps up the episode of What We Wish We Knew When We Were 1 Hours from Late Night in the Library, brought to you by Widener Law Commonwealth. Again, my name's Owen.
And I'm Enzo.
And that's it. That's a wrap.